Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode.
In today's episode, I was joined by Buffalo Bills fan David Kaprosch as we review Week 3 of the 2025 NFL season. David discusses the atmosphere in Buffalo on Thursday night and which game surprised him on Sunday.
And then I look again and the score changes and it's Philly and I'm like, wait, what just happened?
I discuss which team's defense let me down. Hope you all enjoy.
The run defense was once again really poor. I mean, you think about hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host Andy Davis and we are here to review Week 3 in the NFL. And with me, I've got a returning guest. Live from Buffalo, we've got Captain Dave Kaprosch from Hit the Showers. Dave, first of all, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a while. All here in the U.S. today and beautiful September weather continuing and no complaints here.
Yeah, and I can imagine sitting at 3-0 is a lot better than sitting at 0-3.
Yes, I would definitely have to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with that. Thursday night football, Dolphins Bills in Buffalo, of course, a game that you were at. And unless a miracle happens, it will be the last time the Dolphins ever play at the Highmark Stadium in a game which I think took everyone by surprise. Even with injuries on Buffalo's defense, not many were expecting the scoreline to be what it was, which was in the end a double-digit game, 31-21 win for the Bills. But at one point, the Dolphins clawed back to make it 21-21 before eventually a blocked punt, a roughing the punter call, set the Dolphins back to an interception, led to a Bills ultimately comfortably stealing the game. But for you, Dave, at one point, of course, you were in the stadium. You were. I always look out for you because I think at one time, this time last year, you were on TV in its exact fixture. So I always look out for you when the players are walking into the tunnel. I always think, oh, Dave's near there. You know, I remember when I went to watch the game with you. I recall seeing the players very near us when they go back into their locker rooms. But was there a point in the game when it was 21-21 where you thought, you know, it could be one of those trap games?
I mean, you're a Miami fan. You know the division. It's a divisional game. You know, I was saying it all week. I was saying it even over the weekend. You got two teams coming off 3 days rest. You had a team that's traveling in. You know, we had three key guys out on defense. I mean, it was the perfect storm. And then you throw in a double-digit favorite on top of it all. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of games like that when it's, you know, the obvious is staring in your face with the home team, you know, supposed to, you know, boat race you out of the building. And so as the game was tied 21-all, you know, in the fourth, you know, there was a little nervousness going on. I mean, I wasn't. I just was like, you know what? It was no different than the game last year here when, you know, Tyler Bass had to hit a 61-yarder to win it. I mean, it was the script was almost to a T, you know, from Thursday night to the game last year here. I mean, I don't know. They're always tough.
I think that we see not just in the AFC, but we see a lot of divisions where this is the case. You know, especially historic rivalries. You think about a lot of games over the years: Ravens, Steelers, Ravens and Browns last year, Ravens and Bengals. They're always close. You know, NFC North goes without saying. You've got, you know, Packers, Bears, Vikings, Packers, Vikings. You know, there's so many historic rivalries in that division. And I think that it is one of the ones where it's probably not a betting man, probably one of the hardest games to bet on, division rivalry games. You know, and I think that even with the likes of Matt Milano and Ed Oliver out, I kind of still felt that it was, you know, Buffalo's to lose, and I felt like, you know, I was really impressed with how McDaniel called the game, which is not something I've said a lot recently. I was impressed with the defensive performance. There were times where, you know, we caused the Bills to go 3 and out. I think that with times we stifled Josh Allen, but still, sadly for our defense, we didn't record a single interception. And I think in the end, James Cook had another great game. And I think that in the end, it is sadly one of the situations of the Dolphins fan where you just think, well, they are just miles better, and that's kind of where they are and where we are in terms of his teams. But I was really impressed with Waddle's performance. I think with someone who was questionable before the game started, and it did lose me in my matchup with Freddie Hall from the franchise tag in our fantasy league, not playing because I was told he wasn't playing, and then he was playing. But I think, we can be happy with how he performed. I felt like Daniel was going for a lot less of the Hollywood passes and more the simple passes, a lot of screen passes, a lot of, methodical plays rather than going for the jugular on third down, on fourth down. There was a few really nice third down passes from Tua, who I thought, apart from the interception at the end, I thought he was pretty good. The yardage won't show that, but I thought he was pretty methodical. Good drives down the field, and, there was a really good fourth down play as well to get a first down for the team. But in the end, when it really mattered, what did Tua do? Threw the game away, threw a pick. And I think for me, I did talk about this as a guest on a podcast last week about I felt like this game was maybe a game where the ones unlike me who are Tua supporters maybe also realize that maybe he isn't the guy, because every big game, the same thing happens. Whenever it's a good team, or it's in cold weather, or teams above 500, every game you can count on either being injured or not performing when it matters. Because for 3.5 quarters, he was really good. But at the end, just didn't see. And I think, was it Christian Benford? I can't think who the Bills player was, but he just didn't see him coming. He didn't see him coming at all. And whilst I think his performance was for a lot of it quite valiant, it was fairly good. I think there's definitely an acceptance now, I feel, amongst the fan base that maybe he's not the guy to get you over the line. I mean, looking at, I took a screenshot during the game of his stats against Buffalo Bills, and it was something like 1-8, 1-9 against Bills. I think Josh Allen's only lost to him once in his entire time. Only lost to the team in total twice. The team just can't seem to get over this Buffalo hump. And for a team that was in your era as well, David, with Jim Kelly and Dan Marino had a lot of time the better of the Bills. But now it seems to have flipped completely. And, they just seem to be a team that we just can't ever beat. But, what was your take on Tua's throw at the end, and sort of as someone looking into the game and looking into how the Dolphins were playing against you? Was there any sort of concerns of the Bills fan about how you allow the Dolphins to get back in the game? Are you in agreement about Tua and not being the guy? What was your thoughts on all of those things?
Well, to piggyback on your comments, I thought he called a great game, and they played with some fire. I mean, I don't know if you heard from the New England game last week, in Miami, the couple planes were pulling hammers, fire Greer, fire McDaniel. So I guess, the stove's been hot down there in Miami, no pun intended, but, for, wanting both of those guys to be fired. So you throw that in. And again, I thought he called a really good game, because it was turning out that way. Both really shots down the field. If you look at Josh's stats, he threw for like under 220 yards. And different than Tua. Is Tua the guy moving forward? I mean, with the type of offense that McDaniel set up for him, I mean, I think he can play, but he's not. He said in his press conference during the week, he goes, I'm nowhere near a Josh Allen. Like I can't do things that Josh Allen can do. I mean, and I don't think a lot of quarterbacks can. I mean, so no knock on him, and I like Tua. I mean, he can play, but again, it's a rhythmic offense. Everything's timing, and you saw games where if the timing is off, it's horrible. It's all timing routes. This guy's got to be in those spots, right? He's getting rid of that ball in less than 3 seconds. As soon as it's in his hands, he's rolling left or rolling right, which again, watching that on my post game. They ran a near perfect offense against it, and especially on third down. Buffalo couldn't get off the field. They were like 10 or 15 on third down. I mean, that alone should get you a win. Just just on third downs. Right, it's head up. You're only down 7. And it was back and forth all game. Bills would take a lead, Miami would tie it. Bills would take a lead, Miami would tie it. And it was happening in the drive. They're inside the 25. I'm like, here we go. Josh may get the ball back with a couple minutes left, and who knows what. I mean, but they were moving the ball down the field. They were taking what Buffalo was giving them, and it was working until that play. And until your captain on defense and special teams, ran the punter over. I'm like, what? Everyone's cheering, and I'm standing there dumbfounded. Like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I was happy it happened, but like, in that spot, there's less than 11 minutes left, and you're getting the ball back, and it's a tie game. I mean, the table was set. I'm like, he knew it too. I mean, I don't know if they kept showing him on the broadcast, just disgusted with himself. Like, why in that spot are you doing that? Again, it's good teams find ways to win, and teams, no knock on, because that's your team, but and it happened with us in a 17-year drought. Bad teams find ways to lose games, plain and simple. And it happened Thursday night, where they had a chance to really pull up a big upset.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, it's just, I think someone said it. I don't know whether it was in the Bills game or the Patriots game. It might have been a Patriots game where someone went, and there's for those who are listening in America or yourself, David, there's a show, Channel 5, they started showing games this year, and during the coverage of that game on the second game, the presenter, who's a Dolphins fan, he called it Dolphiny, and I feel like there's definitely this theme ever since this whole century, pretty much since the last time we won a playoff game, is that we just seem to find ways to lose these games, and it's why we've got the longest playoff win drought. There's a lot of players now, like Jaden Daniels, for example, who was born after our last playoff win, and the longer it's going, the longer it's going to get of an issue. And I do feel like, in a way, not as much this game because it was in Buffalo, but I feel like Buffalo's a prime example of how you can make an atmosphere win your games. When you think about Baltimore, you think about Buffalo, Green Bay, these teams all 9 times out of 10 are amazing at home. And I think that, in a way, I don't think the fan base, in terms of the home atmosphere, is scary enough for teams to play. And I think there's the whole thing with the Indian burial ground that the stadium's on top of. There just seems to be a lot of things that are going wrong for the Dolphins. Think of the off-season additions or losing players, not paying enough money. But the players we've lost in the last 5 years is insane and not much return. But no, I think that moment there for me was a turning point, because whilst I do feel like we kind of punt it would have been the 2 or 3 yard line. I do feel like that would have been a hard drive. We may have had to punt it away, but at the same time, the way we were playing, the way we were getting those short gains, screen passes to A-Chain, runs with Ollie Gordon, or short passes to Jalen Waddle and Hill, it was working. And I think that would have been a hard drive. But again, you want to have the ball in your hands and get the ball away from Josh Allen's hands for as long as possible. And it's a shame that it was a player that I love, Zach Thielen, one of our most experienced players on defense. And if it was a rookie, if it was someone who was maybe in their second year, you can understand it and you could put it down to sort of that young sort of factor. But the fact that he is been around the league for 8-9 years now, experienced vets, one of the best players we've had on defense the last 3 or 4 years. Is a guy that you expect to make the plays, and sadly, it was a disappointing, turn events. And I think that was a real momentum shifter. I think you could feel it in the stadium. Me watching on TV, you could really feel that momentum shift. And, for me personally, I said before that I watch these games, before work, and then I have to wait till so my lunch break to watch the second half. I managed to get to, as I was starting work, I managed to get to the point where Tyreek Hill scored a touchdown to make it 21-all, did the somersault. And the kind of mood I was in that first half of my work shift was amazing. I was thinking, oh my God, we're going to do this. Oh my God, we're going to potentially beat the Bills in Buffalo, which is something we never do. And then it took me literally 5 minutes into my lunch break. I saw the Zach there blocking roughing the punter, and then two his interception happened. It was a real contrast of emotions for me. But no, I think when I was watching it, when I saw it happen, I could just feel the whole momentum of Highmark Stadium shift. I really could. And I feel like that's been a theme. I felt the same thing in week 1 when Derrick Henry fumbled the ball. And I felt like there was a real change of momentum then. You could really feel the crowd rising. And I feel like, this has been a theme. There's been a lot of fortune going in the Bills' favour. You think about that same game against the Ravens. There was a deflected pass to Keon Coleman. Could have easily, gone elsewhere on that play. You think about the Henry fumble I just mentioned, the Zach Sealer roughing the punter. There just seems to be, I said it before, I don't think the Bills lose any games this year, maybe one at a stretch. It just feels like with how easy the division is, I mean, Jets 0-3, Dolphins 0-3, Patriots are 1-2, and that win was against the Dolphins. You already 3 wins and 0 losses. It just feels like it feels meant to be. Now you could prove you wrong. You probably think, oh, we've been here before. We were saying this last year and the year before that. But I think with the kind of fortune you're getting on your side right now, is a lot of good teams do in any sport. A lot of good teams in sport, they get these fortunate moments, and they look back on the end of the season of moments you can think that helped us towards getting this target. And with I think with the way the division is, you probably got 6-0, 5-1 in the AFC East this year. And that will seriously help you, with that getting that number 1 seed, and as we talked about in the season preview, potentially getting the AFC Championship game in your home ground, the final ever game at Highmark. Do you feel there's a sense of it's meant to be with how Josh Allen's playing so far, James Cook, even without Milano and Ed Oliver, you were making plays on defense for some of the time? Is there a feeling amongst the fan base that maybe this is meant to be this year? Especially with how poor the Chiefs have been. Bengals have lost Joe Burrow. Ravens have been very hit and miss so far this season. Is there a feeling amongst Bills Mafia that maybe this is finally the year to at least make a Super Bowl once again?
I mean, 3 weeks in, me personally, I won't go down that road just yet. I mean, the fan base as a whole, right now, it feels like no other, not a different year than the last, because people are always, Super Bowl or bust kind of thing. Again, for me, the old cliche, I just go one game at a time. I try not to look too far down the road and get too worked up or excited about it. So, I mean, it might be because of my age. I don't know. I've seen a lot of bad football in a lot of years in this place, in this franchise, actually. So I just kind of wait. I thought last year for me, when we got to a point, a couple games that I'm thinking this is the way they were playing, and I never go down that road. But I actually thought last year they were gap to back and we had, and call it, but not to be. So it took me a while to get to that, to answer your question, to get to that, I think it's the year. I mean, again, my glass is always half full with this team, no matter what year it was or what the record is going into it or whatever. But realistically, yes, I think they can. But right now, I'm not going there just yet. A lot of football to go. I always say that on my pregame, postgame. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and I definitely try to stay true to that. So we'll see. We'll see how this league, injuries. I mean, it was the kid for the Chargers, popped his Achilles. Najee Harris, just moving forward to get a handoff. And I saw that, I saw the replay of it. I saw that ankle just like literally go the other way. I'm like, but for me, it's as long as 17 is upright and doing his thing, the sky's the limit with this team. So it's a wait and see. Give me to just Thanksgiving, December, and I'll give you maybe a more definitive. Until we lock home field to get that number 1 seed, like we talked about the season preview. Yeah, that's the only thing they're chasing right now. Besides the obvious, getting a trophy, get that 1 seed, and let's go from there.
Well, if it is to be the year where you make it, one team you could face in that would be the Lions, who did get a Monday Night Football win over the Baltimore Ravens in a crazy affair, a 38-30 win, a game which was level in the start of the fourth quarter at the score of 21-21. And then as the fourth quarter began, the Lions took charge. Jahmyr Gibbs started the process. Then Derrick Henry had his third fumble in as many games at a really crucial point of the game. In the end, the Lions did get the points and got the win they needed, 38-30, which moves them to 2-1, whereas it moves the Ravens to 1-2. Now the Ravens, once again, the Ravens find ways to lose games, and it's a worrying start to the season. Now, granted, they won in convincing fashion in week 2, but that's against one of the worst offenses I've seen this season. The Browns have been terrible on that side of the ball. We all know what happened week 1 against yourselves in a crazy collapse. And there's definitely room to be concerned about the Ravens. Now, again, we mentioned it then, it's only week 3. And I remember Buccaneers in 2020 season, they got absolutely smashed in their first week against the New Orleans Saints. And this game against the Lions, it was a difficult watch, I think, for me, because the run defense was once again really poor. I mean, you think about week 1 against you guys and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the amount of yards you allowed. I mean, they allowed even. First of all, they allowed 41 points, but then also they allowed James Cook to get 58 yards. Josh hadn't got another 30 on the ground. In week 2, Judkins got 68 yards in week 2. And then week 3, they allowed Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to really run riot on this team. I mean, looking at, Montgomery had 2 touchdowns, 151 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 touchdowns as well, 67 yards. So that's 4 rushing touchdowns, in just one game. And I think for me, it's, yes, it's good they can beat the Browns, fair enough, division rival and all that. But these are 2 teams that they're going to, if they want to win Super Bowl, they want to win AFC Championship games, they can have to beat the Bills most likely to get there, and they can have to, if they're going to make the Super Bowl, they can have to, play a team like the Lions or maybe the Eagles or maybe even the Buccaneers. It just seems like at the moment that they're really struggling to hold on to leads, and stop teams from scoring at the moment, and good teams as well, which they, week 3 granted, but when it gets to a crucial part, I don't see this Ravens team right now being able to hold a lead. I mean, that's what, in two big games, that is 81 points they've allowed in 2 games against teams they want to be, competing against to win these things. And, you think about, some teams can play really bad and they can win games, but some teams can play really good and lose games. And I think the Chiefs proved that last year, one of only 4 teams to not score more than 30 points in the regular season. What do? They made the Super Bowl, albeit they got hammered in the Super Bowl. They still made it there. But this Ravens team, and it's been a theme of Lamar Jackson's career, really good regular season, disappointing postseason, and maybe it'll switch around because maybe they will actually do well in the postseason. But from what I'm seeing so far, they for me have been really, on defense, really, really poor for me.
Yeah, that was just a slugfest. I mean, it was a heavyweight match, and they just kept going punch for punch. And then, like I said earlier, before we lost the connection, they sacked Lamar 7 times. I mean, how good is that? My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a good thing at all. I mean, 7 times one game. I mean, you have to give Detroit credit as well. I felt like their defense to me was really impressive. I think for a team that was so bad and we won, I mean, that was completely not what anyone expected from the Lions. And I think that in a way that showed how good the Packers defense is as well. But I think under a team that's lost 2 coordinators, I was really impressed with Kelvin Shepherd. His work so far in the last 2 games, especially. They really got to the mark. They really got to this Ravens offense, and there was, obviously the Derrick Henry fumble, and that was the punching the ball out of his arms, and they almost did it again with Lamar Jackson later on in the game. This is a team that is finding ways to win. And they're losing key parts of their team, and they're so far, apart from week 1, take that week 1 away. This Lions team, 50 odd points against the Bears, 38 points against the Ravens. This team, on offense as well, is also seems to be recovering from a lot of a big part of their offense and their coordinator. So both parts of the ball, they've lost a coordinator. They seem to have really recovered well from this, and I do feel like if it's not one of I think it could either be an NFC North AFC Championship. It could be if it's not the Eagles, Bucks, Lions or Packers in that NFC Championship, I'd be shocked. I mean, they have been the standout team so far, but I think for the Lions, I think they're quite rightly now going to be seen as one of the contenders, especially with the Packers losing. We'll get on to that later on, but this is the team that I think is showing everyone what a good organization is. They're really well run from the top up. They've got a good GM, they've got a good head coach, and they're losing key pieces and still managing to perform and do well and get big results. So for me, I was really impressed with Detroit and really underwhelmed with the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that game, was a big message to potentially how both these teams season can go.
Yeah. I mean, Detroit lost, what they say in the broadcast, they lost 8 assistant coaches, 8. Because I know they lost, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the OC and the DC, but 8 assistant coaches. I mean, that's amazing. Dan Campbell, they tell you, the guy can coach, and he proved it last night. Absolutely.
And looking at their schedule, the next 4 games before their week 8 bye, they've got the Browns next. They've got the Bengals without Joe Burrow. They've got a Chiefs team struggling, and then the Buccaneers. I mean, that there is at least 2, if not 3 wins on paper, or certainly 2 wins. So they can go, they can go 4-1. They could go 5-1 or 4-2. I mean, either way, that's a good start for a team that, again, as you mentioned, has lost people, lost key pieces. And let's not forget they've lost 2 massive parts of their offense in Jonah Jackson and I forgot the other guy's name, but they've lost 2 really key offensive linemen, and that's a big ask for their young guys to come in and step up. So yeah, for me, the Lions have been really impressive, and there's a lot to be excited about, I think, for Detroit. And I think this is our best chance in a while to see a Super Bowl where neither team's won it. If it is the Bills Lions, that's a brand new Super Bowl winner. So for me, yeah, Lions, really impressive. I think the Baltimore Ravens will be fine. I think their division will allow them to potentially still win it. The Browns haven't been very good. The Bengals won't carry on. They're going to slip and fall now without Joe Burrow. And Steelers have been very hit and miss. So I think for the Lions, it probably meant more to get the win than the Ravens, because the Lions have got the Vikings, they've got the Packers, they've got the Bears, whereas the AFC North right now seems that it could be a cakewalk for any of these teams, because no team so far has been that impressive in that division. Dave, for you, let's head on to the Sunday slate. What's the one game that stood out for you in this slate? In what was a crazy Sunday?
I mean, I was kind of going back and forth with a couple of them, and then I didn't catch the ends of the early games until I looked at scores, and I was peeking in on the live on my phone with in particular the Rams and the Eagles, how that finished. I mean, you had blocked field goals that led to either game-changing drives, score-changing drives, or game-winning, kicks. I mean, it was a crazy finish, and again, some of those early games. Yeah, you go with Green Bay and Cleveland, how that game finished. The aforementioned, Rams and the Eagles. The Niners in the late game had a late field goal to win it. I mean, my goodness, some crazy finishes. So, I mean, you could throw a hat over 5 games and almost the same finishes.
Yeah, I mean, that Rams-Eagles game was maybe my favourite of the week. I really enjoyed it. I mean, that the red zone itself we had for 20 minutes was quite something, and this game certainly was part of that. I mean, if I'm right in saying this is the first game in history to have 2 blocked field goals in the same game for one team. Josh McCarthy having a nightmare in that sense. I thought there was some really good, and I mean, the fact that the Rams were so far ahead, and then the Eagles find their way back into the game. You had the late touchdown from Devonta Smith, and then you thought, right, the Eagles have won this. But then the Rams go down the field, they got a chance to win the game, and then in the end, it was another blocked kick, and Jordan Davis got the return blocked kick for a touchdown. I think that's again going back to mentioning the Bills getting these bits of luck, and I think the Eagles there as well getting that bit of fortune. I think all good teams need if they want to win things. Rams 2-1. I think that they're fine with that. I mean, the Eagles at 3-0. I think this is going to be the year when they break the streak of the the longest. I think it's 2003, 2004, the last time a team won back-to-back divisions in the NFC East. I think the Commanders have been very underwhelming. The Giants have been the Giants, and the Cowboys have been better than expected, but still not enough. So I think the Eagles team is going to finally break that long streak of no back-to-back division winners.
Wow, I didn't know that one. As far as back-to-back winners in the NFC East, holy cow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, right now they're in the driver's seat, but after week 3, so that'll be worth paying attention to. But yeah, if Jaden Daniels could just stay healthy, they took it to the Raiders Sunday, and that'll be a division to kind of keep an eye on, especially those 2 teams.
Absolutely. You mentioned Browns Packers there. I mean, this is one game that took my eye for maybe the wrong reasons, maybe been the good reasons. I mean, I think you saw 2 defenses that were really good in this game. I mean, the Browns defense is, I think, statistically the best in the league at the moment, certainly on pass defense. In the end, they had 5 sacks, 1 interception, and there was a team that was performing so well, on defense. The offense was really underwhelming and really poor, and I think that they could have easily won this game by more had their offense been functional. And the Packers, I think their defense is pretty good. I mean, they had a couple of sacks and interception as well. But what turned the game for me was the Jordan Love interception. It was 10-3 to the Packers, and I was thinking it's going to be a really low-scoring game, but I think they're going to ride this out. But what happens? Jordan Love throws an interception in the red zone. Browns get the a field goal with their next drive, and when you had that going on, you had the Browns Packers game. You had the sort of multiple screens on red zone, and you had next thing you had, I believe it was at the same time, you had the Browns getting the winning field goal, and you had the Rams block kick. I think there was that, and then also just a few seconds later, you had the blocked kick for the Jets blocking the kick from the Buccaneers, and it was just that was a crazy game as well. I mean, the Buccaneers winning by 29-27. That was just a crazy 20-minute period, and I mentioned it on my TikTok about how crazy that period was, but it was just so much happened at once, and for a while I was thinking it's a bit of an underwhelming red zone, and then out of nowhere it just completely blew up, and it was just insane. And I think again, as a UK fan base, we're trying to really grow this sport in the UK. We're trying to really get more people watching it, and I think for that kind of situation where as Brits, a lot of Brits hate adverts and they hate that part of the NFL. I think for a channel like Red Zone, which doesn't most of the time show the adverts, that's such a good advert for the sport. Even for if you're an NBA guy in the US, if you're a hockey guy, and you come in and see that, I mean, that was such a great 20 minutes. That could really, I think that's such a great advert for the NFL.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you won't see finishes like that in a bundle like that maybe ever again. That was just the football guys up there were going, let's do something different today. Because that's what it seemed like. Obviously, like you said, trying to watch Red Zone, and I had to leave from that, and then I just kind of followed on my phone, and like I said, I got to the point where the Rams are lining up for a 44-yard field goal, and then I look again, and the score changes, and it's Philly, and I'm like, wait, what just happened? Same with the last second kicks for Cleveland and Tampa. I'm just like, wow. And then later, like I mentioned, San Francisco later, at the later afternoon game. Yeah, it's crazy week 3 for sure.
Yeah, really was. On Red Zone, actually, obviously you'll know as well as me that they've now introduced adverts to Red Zone. Far as I know, we don't get the adverts in the UK. I've got a feeling I've not seen any adverts in the whole 3 weeks watching Red Zone. I've not seen a single advert, and I've got a feeling that in the UK we get to avoid having the adverts on Red Zone, whereas in the US you seem to have these adverts.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Because it seems unfair on you guys, because we get the same thing. I mean, there's a law in the UK where Premier League games at 3:00 in the UK can't be shown on TV, whereas any other country, the US, Portugal, Spain, France, they can all watch Premier League games live on TV at 3:00. And it feels the same thing with you guys. I mean, there's been a thing for years where the coverage will end, but it'll carry on for international viewers, and then the same thing here. Red Zone US viewers have to watch adverts whilst watching Red Zone, and we don't. I think I don't know why this is, but I'm not complaining. Of course, I'm not complaining at all. But it does seem a bit unfair on you guys that it's sport in your country and you're not getting the as many benefits as we are.
Well, I think, as you probably know, ESPN took over NFL Red Zone. So now, and that's what I haven't sat down. I watched maybe a few minutes of Red Zone on Sunday, and yeah, I noticed it was the first thing I noticed, the commercial breaks. I'm like, what? Where it's great with Scott Hansen. I don't know how he did it all those years with no commercial breaks and just going for 7 hours. I mean, that's crazy. But yeah, now with the advertisements. Yeah, now with the advertisements thrown in there. Yeah. Welcome to America Television. Got to get those advertisements going. Got to pay the bills.
No advert breaks, no toilet breaks for Scott Hansen all these years. Not a single.
Yeah.
He had one toilet break the entire 15 years he's done it so far.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. He does such a good job with it too. It's like, yeah, he can't change guys, doing that job now, because he's so good at it. He's so good at it.
I mean, there's no one better. I think the only guy could probably match it is maybe Pat McAfee, but no one will match Scott Hansen's energy on Red Zone. Do you know what Scott Hansen's? He mentioned this years ago. What his team name is on fantasy football? Do you know what his team name is?
No, I do not.
He's called his team the Iron Bladders.
Apropos, man, for sitting in that studio for 7 hours at a crack, and not being able to empty the bladder per se.
I don't know. I don't know how he does it.
That's classic. That's a great team name.
Well, moving on to the rest of Sunday, there were wins for the Panthers, a 30-0 win over the Falcons. The Texans moved to 0-3 as they lost 17-10 to the Jaguars. Recently, in the last 2 hours, they have released Gardner Johnson in Houston. The Vikings and Carson Wentz stormed past the Bengals with a 48-10 win over the Bengals. It was just an insane performance from the Bengals. I mean, I had the Bengals, winning this game. I thought Jake Browning knew the playbook longer than the Wentz had at the Vikings. But in the end, I couldn't believe what that performance was from the Vikings. It was such an amazing performance on defense. I've literally forgotten the guy's name. I'm trying to get it up now. Isaiah Rodgers, who got
Isaiah Rodgers, yeah,
2 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns in the game. He was the star of the show, certainly on defense for the Vikings, and
no doubt.
Carson Wentz looked like he was balling out for his which I didn't realize was his hometown team. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
The Steelers got back to winning ways. They beat the Patriots 21-14. Aaron Rodgers, getting his second win as a Steeler. and Patriots losing once again after their win in week 2. As well as this, the Colts made it 3-0 in one of the surprise stories of the season so far, as they beat the Titans 41-20, and the Commanders and backup Marcus Mariota beat the Raiders 41-24, and the Chargers earned a massive win in the AFC West as they beat the Broncos by 23-20, and also the Seahawks beat the Saints by 44-13, and the Bears got their first win in the Ben Johnson era as they beat the Cowboys 31-14, a game that friend of the show Tom Morton was attending. As well as this, the Niners got a narrow victory over the Arizona Cardinals, a game which saw Nick Bosa go down with injury, and he is now out for the season. And then finally, the Kansas City Chiefs got their first win of the season in a poor game in a 22-9 win over the New York Giants. But there we are. That is the end of our Week 3 review. Dave, first of all, huge thank you for coming on.
Thank you, and again, apologies for the crazy Wi-Fi in my house. Hopefully, we get that corrected.
The power of editing will be at full force in this episode. We'll try and cut as much out as possible. But yeah, for those of you that were wondering what was going on and why Dave has maybe changed rooms, if you are watching on YouTube, that is why.
Yes.
But this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Week 3 review with myself, your host, Andy Davis, and our guest today, David Kaprosch. And we'll see you guys our Week 4 preview. Take care.
Peace.